Howdy folks. So this is a 1970 Porsche 911T Sportomatic. It's been in my family for over 40 years and I've done a lot of restoration work on it. I'll explain some more here and in another series of video clips. But it's been having shifting problems in that it doesn't want to go in and out of gear correctly. I've done all kinds of other work, including working on the points, the contact points at the bottom of the shifter, and I'll explain that. But right now I'm working on testing the vacuum servo. So we're going to start by taking apart some of the engine and the air cleaner to get to the various components to test the vacuum on it. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is take the air cleaner off and get to the various hoses. So I've removed the air filter and the outer face and the air intake here, and now I'm gonna take this various piece apart. And behind the this intake component are two hoses that have to be disconnected from behind it. So you have to disconnect those and one from underneath. So to help out with that, here's the portions of where the hose comes off of the air cleaner. There's two here, a large one and a small one. You can see that, and you can leave this in attached accordingly. And so now you get to the top of the engine. So on the Sportomatic, the piece in the back there, that's the vacuum accumulator against the wall. That hose goes in a control valve, and that control valve operates the vacuum component that drives the vacuum servo and engages the clutch. So the Sportomatic's unique compared to a manual or an automatic. It's got both a torque converter and a clutch, and the clutch is operated by vacuum. And so I think that there might be something wrong with the vacuum system, which is why it's not going into gear correctly. So I'm going to put a vacuum to these lines and to the accumulator, and I'm going to test it to see what it does. Okay, so the Porsche has had the air intake removed, and I've disconnected the accumulator hose. It goes from the accumulator mounted on the back wall here. It goes to the control valve. I think you can see that right there. That's the control valve port. So here's the hose. So in order to try and test this thing, there's the hose, vacuum hose. I've had to create this crazy gizmo here. So basically I've got a rubber port to some line here, and that vacuum hose line is connected to a vacuum gauge and to a ball valve, so I can shut it off, to a vacuum pump. Now this is a Dayton vacuum pump. Maybe you can see that there. That's my model anyway. That vacuum pump is used to test like refrigerator components and stuff. And I've had a lot of trouble coming up with how to get a connection made. So basically this is convoluted, very crazy, but I went on Amazon and bought 10 feet of vacuum hose. Well, it turns out the vacuum hose is terrible, as Murphy's Law would predict, and it collapses under vacuum. So that's stupid. So I've already complained on that. Then I went to Lowe's and I picked up plastic poly tubing, and that will not collapse. So believe it or not, there's two tubes here. I put poly inside of this thing because I needed a rubber, a soft way to connect to all these weird parts. Otherwise I couldn't get the tubing to fit. So inside of this, if I squeeze that, you can see that it won't collapse. It's got the poly tubing in it. So I connect to the top of the port here, the vacuum pump. And I go to the ball valve, again with the poly on each side, and then to a coupling here that I got at like the auto parts store that was piece of PVC or so to the vacuum gauge. And then this actually came in the kit when I bought the vacuum kit. It was like 15 bucks on Amazon that had a gauge in it. It was about $15, and it had this rubber piece in it, and that lets me make my connection to the back of the car here and test the hose. Okay, so it's hard to show this, but I'm gonna connect this piece here. Hold on a second. I'm gonna connect this piece to the hose, force it in there. So hopefully now you can see it. I basically just forced that piece in there. And so the idea here is I'm going to put a vacuum on this thing and see what it does. So right now the gauge, wow, if you can see that, okay, gauge is, I don't know, almost 0, maybe on 1. This is not super accurate here, but what I'm trying to test is the accumulator to see does it hold vacuum. So I'm going to turn on the pump. So you can hear the pump. You can hear the pump drawing vacuum, and it looks like it is indeed drawing vacuum, because there you go. It's pulled down to, I don't know, according to this thing, maybe, gosh, it's hard to see, sorry, 29, 28, whatever the deal is on that. I was trying to check the inches of mercury on this, and somewhere I read that between 7 and 8 inches of mercury is what it should hold. But I haven't been able to find a gauge that's worth a darn. This came off an old refrigerant set of lines I had, because the one that came in the cheesy kit that I got didn't work worth a darn. I'll show you that real quick. Here's the kit that I bought for 14 bucks online, thinking, well, that'll work just fine. Here's the gauge, and you put vacuum on it and it doesn't do a thing. So that's what you get from China. But I have used some of the parts that came in this brass valve part, or brass fitting components here. So back to the problem at hand. How do I test this? So the accumulator now has suction to it. I've got 29 reading there. I'm going to take the ball valve and close it now. Okay, that ball valve is closed. I'm holding 29, and I turn the unit off. So now I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to see what it does. So I'll be back in just a minute. Let's give it a few minutes and see what happens. Okay, so I've been working on all kinds of things all day. Went and did another project and came back. That's been sitting there for an hour, still holding vacuum. So I would say the accumulator's fine, still holding the vacuum. And that's a good thing. So now I'm going to move on and test the next part, probably the vacuum actuator next. All right, so I'll report in here in just a second. Okay, so hopefully you can see this now. There's the line to the vacuum accumulator. Goes underneath there, right there, down underneath that part, and from there, let's see, right, see if you can see it. You know, very difficult to see, but it goes in through there and underneath the body of the car, the vacuum accumulator. So it came off of the control valve behind the line here for the accumulator, and right there is the second port on the control valve. This piece here is known as the control valve, where the light is. Okay, so having said that, and you see the line there, I've hooked my crazy vacuum line to it, which goes to here, and the valve, and I'm going to turn on the pump. See what it does. Open up the valve line, and it's trying to draw vacuum, and it's not drawing very much. In fact, compared to the accumulator, it's not doing well at all. looking like it's only got about 2 or 3 inches of mercury, maybe 5 now, maybe, and that gauge is not very accurate at all. That's not good. So I'm going to test a few more things and I'll be right back. Okay, after trying a couple of different fittings, basically on the end piece there I was working with right here for my test to the vacuum actuator, it doesn't hold vacuum. That's a big problem. Immediately loses vacuum. So that means that the vacuum accumulator, or sorry, the vacuum servo diaphragm must have a leak in it. And if that's the case, it's never going to shift right. It's got a slow leak or something of that nature. So that means I'm going to have to take the entire vehicle apart, drop the engine to get to the vacuum servo, and that's what I was hoping to avoid. So that whole process will be a different video. Check it out a different time. I'm gonna probably check some more tests on the control valve. Maybe tomorrow I'll record those and add it to this video if I do, and go from there. But it looks like that's what the problem is, a vacuum servo. So thanks for watching, and I'll try to fill you in with what I learned. All right, thanks.